The Collector's Piece. The final bid for auction lot 37 was more than I'd ever spent. The listing was a single grainy photo of a porcelain doll in a lace gown, described only as Antique Doll C 1890, provenance unknown. When she arrived, a yellowed note was pinned to her sealed glass case in a spidery, shaking script. She chooses her keeper. Do not break the seal until she does. I, a rational collector of the macabre, laughed. A clever story to inflate the price. I named her Eloise and placed her case in my study, a trophy among my other curiosities. The first week, it was just the smell. Not a musty doll smell, but the distinct cloying scent of old roses, and beneath it, the damp, cold odor of recently turned earth. It would appear and vanish. Then the positioning. I'd leave her facing my desk. The next morning, she'd be turned just slightly, her painted blue eyes now fixed at the study door. My security camera, pointed at the case, recorded only flawless, undisturbed stillness, except for every night at exactly 3:15 a.m., the feed would dissolve into 47 seconds of blizzard-like static. When the picture returned, the glass lid of her case would be faintly fogged, as if from a small, close breath. My rationalizations grew desperate. A gas leak? A draft? One night, working late, I fell asleep at my desk. I awoke to that smell, so thick it coated my tongue. The room was ice cold, and I heard it, a soft, dry scraping, like porcelain on glass. Eloise was no longer standing placidly. Her tiny hands were pressed flat against the inside of her glass lid, her face tilted as if peering out at the sleeping house. I didn't move. I barely breathed. As I watched, her head, with a sound no louder than a grain of rice cracking, rotated a full 90 degrees to look directly at me in the dark. I fled. I spent the next day researching exorcisms, purification rituals, but it all felt like madness. That night, fortified by dread and cheap whiskey, I decided to end it. I would smash the case, destroy the doll. I entered the study at midnight. The case was empty. My blood turned to slush. Then, from behind me, a child's whisper, dry as fallen leaves, brushed against my ear. You broke the seal. You looked at me. Now I choose. A cold, rigid hand slipped into mine. The last thing I remember is the glass lid of the display case coming down over my own head, sealing shut with a soft click. I write this from inside the case. The air is growing stale, smelling of roses and dirt, and from my chair across the room, Eloise sits, wearing my face, smiling my smile, watching me fade. She has chosen her new keeper.
2. The Goodwill Gift. My son Leo pulled her from the free bin at Goodwill, her one good arm hooked around his tiny wrist. Button, he declared, because of her one remaining black button eye. The other socket was a dark, frayed hole. She was grimy, missing patches of hair, but Leo loved her instantly. That first night, as I tucked him in, he held her up and said in a serious tone, "Button says thank you for getting her out of the dark." A chill went through me. What dark, sweetie? He just hugged her closer. Her old dark. Leo's development leapt forward, but in unsettling ways. He'd have long, intricate conversations in his room, his voice, then a lower, raspy whisper. My husband said it was healthy imagination. Then the drawing started. Gone were the sunny houses. Now he drew our home at night, with a tall, impossibly thin shadow figure standing just behind it, a long arm reaching toward Leo's window. And in every picture, the figure held a small, scribbled object, a doll. I found an old voice recorder and left it on his nightstand. That night's playback was mostly rustling. Then Leo's sleepy voice. Is the tall man coming soon? A pause, and the clear, papery whisper, not Leo's, when the moon is eye-shaped. Panic set in. I took Button while Leo napped. I drove for hours, deep into state forest land, and hurled her into a rain-swollen river. I felt a surge of relief so profound I cried. When I got home, Leo was waiting at the living room window. He didn't ask for her. He looked at me with an expression far too old for his face. "She's very cold now," he said softly, "and the tall man is angry you made her lonely." That night, the baby monitor showed Leo sleeping fitfully, and standing beside his bed, visible only as a distortion in the moonlight, was a tall, thin silhouette. We called a specialist, a psychic medium, who paled upon entering Leo's room. The doll was a tether, a lure. You didn't throw away the haunting, you threw away the leash. She performed the cleansing, chanting, ringing bells. For a week, things were normal. Leo was just Leo again. Then this morning, I went to wake him. He was sitting up in bed facing the corner. In his hands was a familiar grimy form, Button dripping wet, riverweed tangled in her hair. He turned to me, his eyes hollow. "She found her way back," he said in that raspy, papery whisper, "and she brought a friend." Behind me, the closet door creaked open on its own. The specialist's card is still on the fridge. I tried calling. The number has been disconnected.
The back alley market in Prague smelled of incense and decay. The old woman had no teeth, just a gums and grin smile. She pointed a bony finger at the doll in my hands, a traditional Curio doll with a hand-painted frown. "Panenka," she crooned, "little doll. She is lost. She misses her village. You will bring her back." She said it not as a question, but a statement. I laughed, paid in koruna, and packed her in my carry-on, a morbid souvenir. On the flight home, I dreamed of a fog-shrouded valley and the sound of a little girl sobbing. I displayed her on my bookshelf. The dreams persisted, now more vivid. A small burning cottage, a church bell tolling endlessly. I'd wake at 3 a.m. to see the doll sitting at the foot of my bed, though I'd left her in the living room. I'd move her back, blaming sleepwalking. Then, the digital intrusions. My browser history showed searches for a specific Czech village, Černý Vrch, I'd never heard of. Flight comparison sites for tickets to Prague popped up autonomously. A Maps app opened on my phone, a route from Prague airport to Černý Vrch, drawn in blood red. I hadn't touched it. I became obsessed. Research revealed Černý Vrch was mostly abandoned after a mysterious fire in 1922. A local legend spoke of a girl who made dolls that captured faces. My own reflection began to waver. In mirrors, my face would sometimes carry the doll's embroidered frown for a fleeting second. I knew with a chilling certainty what I had to do. I wasn't bringing her back. She was bringing me back. I booked the trip, a prisoner to a promise I never made. In the crumbling village, under a gray sky, I left the doll on the mossy steps of a bombed-out chapel. The moment I did, the weight on my shoulders lifted. The air felt clearer. I was free. On the long flight home, I slept dreamlessly for the first time in months. I was woken by a gentle shake, The flight attendant leaned down, concern in her eyes. "Sir, you were talking in your sleep, quite loudly." I apologized, asked what I said. She frowned. "It wasn't English, sounded Eastern European. You kept repeating one phrase, Jeszcze sen padi." My blood ran cold. I knew enough Czech. It meant, "I'm still here." As she walked away, I instinctively put my hand in my coat pocket. My fingers closed, not around my passport, but something small, cold and wooden, a tiny hand-carved hand. And deep in the pocket's lining, I felt the rough, familiar texture of old embroidered cloth. The customs agent asked if I had anything to declare. I just shook my head, my fist clenched tight in my pocket, feeling the slow, deliberate curl of tiny wooden fingers around my own.